My name is Emily, and I'm 25 years old. For most of my adult life, I truly believed I had it all figured out. I had what so many people spend their entire lives searching for: a sense of stability, unwavering loyalty, and a future that felt as solid as the ground beneath my feet. I lived in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet suburb just outside of Chicago, engaged to my long-term partner, Daniel. He was 28, a talented architect with a calm voice and a personality so collected it could soothe any storm. People used to look at us and smile. They'd say we looked like the couple you see on those glossy Christmas cards, the kind that survives anything life throws at them. And I believed them, or maybe I just desperately wanted to. We met in college, bonding over lukewarm coffee from the campus cafe and countless all-nighters in the library. We shared dreams of building a simple, peaceful life together, and for years, everything felt perfect. There were birthdays with thoughtful little surprises, and rainy Sunday mornings spent watching old movies in bed, the scent of coffee filling the air. He used to leave these little handwritten notes on the fridge for me, silly doodles next to reminders, just to make me smile. He used to look at me like I was his entire world. But somewhere over the last year, his gaze started to shift. It wasn't towards someone else, not at first. It was towards his own ambition, the mounting stress of his career. He started working late nights, his fingers tapping away at emails on his phone during dinner. He'd leave for the office in the morning before the sun was even up, without kissing my forehead like he used to. I told myself this was normal. This is what long-term love looks like when it grows up. The initial fire cools down. Maturity and partnership replace that early, breathless excitement. That's what everyone says, right? But I didn't just want maturity. I wanted warmth. I wanted to feel like I was still chosen, every single day. And that's where Adam entered the picture, like an uninvited thought that I just didn't know how to silence. Adam was one of Daniel's closest friends. He was 30, tall, with this easygoing charm that made everyone in the room feel like they were the only person he was talking to. He was the complete opposite of Daniel in so many ways. Expressive, incredibly attentive, a natural listener. He came over often for game nights or weekend barbecues in our small backyard. He always greeted me first. He would always ask how I was doing before he even asked where Daniel was. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was just Adam being Adam. But then, I started noticing the little things. How he remembered I liked oat milk in my latte. How he'd gently defend me when Daniel teased me a little too hard about being overly emotional. How he always stayed behind to help me clean up the kitchen after everyone else had left. It wasn't a spark of attraction. Not then. It was comfort. And that's where the real danger began. Not in a sudden rush of desire, but in the quiet, creeping feeling that someone was finally seeing me again. I started looking forward to his easy laugh, to his presence filling a room. I noticed the way he'd lean in slightly when I spoke, as if my words deserved space and attention. But I never, ever acted on it. Because I was loyal, or at least, I still believed I was. I hadn't yet learned that loyalty begins to crumble long before a physical line is ever crossed. It weakens in the silence, in the loneliness, and in all the things left unsaid. That was the beginning of my mistake. Or maybe it was Daniel's. Or maybe, just maybe, it was both of ours. The week everything changed started with an email notification on Daniel's work phone. He had been assigned to lead a big, week-long project down in Austin. He kissed my cheek as he packed his suitcase, the touch almost mechanical. There was no excitement, no softness, just routine. "Take care of yourself," he said, his eyes already on the Uber notification on his phone. The front door clicked shut, and I remember standing there in the hallway, not feeling sad that he was gone, but feeling oddly relieved. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, but then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Adam. "Daniel told me he's away for the week. Do you need anything? Don't freeze alone in that icebox if the heater's still acting up." The heater was broken, and I was cold. So, I said yes. He arrived with his usual careless grin, a toolbox in one hand and a 6-pack of a local IPA in the other. I made some tea while he worked on the old radiator in the living room. swearing occasionally at rusted bolts under his breath. It felt so normal, so safe. But then, the lights flickered and died. A full city grid failure, thanks to a classic Chicago blizzard that had rolled in without warning. We lit candles. The room was bathed in a flickering, golden light. He sat across from me on the living room floor, holding his mug, his eyes softer in the candlelight than I had ever seen them before. The silence settled between us, not awkward, but thick with an unspoken understanding. "Emily," he said quietly, his voice barely a whisper. "Can I ask you something? And I want you to be completely honest." I just nodded, my chest suddenly feeling tight. "Are you actually happy?" The question shouldn't have hurt, but it did. It felt like a punch to the gut, because no one had asked me that in such a long time. Not my friends, not my family, not even Daniel. I opened my mouth to lie, to say the easy thing, to say yes, of course, but the truth just spilled out instead, slow and painful. "I don't know," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "I feel like I'm fading in my own life." His eyes softened even more. "You deserve more than fading," he said. We didn't touch. We didn't cross any physical line. But that moment, that silent agreement that something real and unspoken existed between us, felt more intimate than any embrace. When the power hummed back on an hour later, the spell was broken, but something between us had been permanently rewired. We didn't talk about it. He left shortly after, but before walking out, he paused at the door. "If you ever need someone to talk to," he said, meeting my eyes. "Someone who actually listens. I'm here." The door closed. I leaned against it, my breath trembling, knowing that my deep, aching loneliness had finally been witnessed by someone. Nothing happened that night, but everything had changed. Daniel came back a day earlier than he was supposed to. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard his voice from the hallway. He was on the phone, laughing quietly. I froze when I heard him say, "She still has no idea. Don't worry. I'll see you this weekend." My hands went numb, the coffee mug feeling heavy and cold. He ended the call and walked into the kitchen. I stepped into the hallway, trying to keep my voice casual. "Who was that?" I asked. He flinched, just slightly, before recovering. "Oh, just work stuff. That project was a mess." He walked past me, and that's when I knew. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. I waited until I heard the shower running. Then I walked over to his phone, sitting on the nightstand. He hadn't changed the passcode. He was either careless or just arrogant. And there it was, dozens and dozens of messages between him and a woman named Sophie, a co-worker from his firm. Months of flirtation. Late-night meetups, hotel bookings confirmed through an app. Selfies of them at a wine bar downtown that I recognized. Her calling him my love. My breath shattered in my chest. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just went cold. So cold I felt weightless, like I was floating outside my own body. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened it blindly, my mind a complete blank. Adam stood there, holding up a wrench he'd forgotten a few days earlier. He saw my face before I could even speak. "Emily, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't answer. I just turned and walked away, leaving the door wide open. He followed me silently into the living room. Without a word, I handed him Daniel's phone. I watched his jaw tighten, a muscle flexing in his cheek as he scrolled. "How long?" he asked, his voice low and tight. "Months," I whispered. He placed the phone down on the coffee table, then gently took my hands, guiding me to sit down on the sofa. "He doesn't deserve you," he said, his own voice shaking with a quiet rage. "He hasn't for a long time." That was the moment his control finally broke. Not in a burst of anger, but in the collapse of his restraint. His thumb gently grazed the back of my hand. A touch so tender, so full of care, that it broke me further than the betrayal itself did. "I tried so hard to stay just his friend," he said, his voice low and strained. "But seeing you like this, I can't pretend anymore." The tears finally came then, not for Daniel, but for all the years I had spent feeling unseen, feeling like I was slowly disappearing. "Adam," I whispered, my voice breaking. I don't want to be strong tonight. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away, to stop it. I didn't. Our lips met. Softly at first. It wasn't a kiss of lust, but of aching, mutual relief. That was it. The line was crossed, and even as it happened, I knew I would carry the weight of this choice, the comfort and the guilt, forever. I confronted Daniel the next morning. I had expected him to deny it. I had braced myself for his rage. But I never, ever expected his indifference. He didn't apologize. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He simply shrugged. Running a hand through his hair, "I was going to tell you eventually," he said. Things just got boring between us. Boring. 5 years of my life, our shared dreams, our inside jokes, all reduced to the word boring. Something inside me snapped. "I know about Sophie," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "And I also need you to know, I wasn't alone last night either." His head jerked up. "What?" I held his gaze, refusing to look away. "Adam was here." Silence. Then, a sudden and uncontrolled rage erupted. "My best friend," he hissed, his face twisting. "You're unbelievable." I almost laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. "You cheated for months." I slipped up once, after I found out about everything. "And I'm the unbelievable one." He didn't reply. He just stared at me, not with heartbreak in his eyes, but with wounded pride. And that's when I understood. His anger wasn't about losing me. It was about losing a possession. It was about his best friend winning. The engagement ended without ceremony. There were no tears, no pleading, just the quiet, methodical sound of packing tape, sealing cardboard boxes, and the final clink of my key on the kitchen counter. Adam wanted to talk. He asked if this meant something, if we could try to build something real, but I just shook my head. "I don't know if what happened between us was love," I told him quietly, "or if it was just revenge disguised as affection. I care about you, Adam, but I need to heal myself before I can ever choose anyone again." He understood, or at least he respected it. Now I live alone. Not lonely, just alone. The silence in my new apartment feels different. It feels like peace. Healing is slow. Some nights, guilt pays me a visit. Some nights, it's anger. But most days, I wake up knowing one thing for certain. Infidelity isn't always the beginning of a betrayal. Sometimes, it's just the final, ugly symptom of a love that was already dying. What I did was wrong. What he did was worse. But what hurt the most, looking back, was how long we both pretended everything was fine. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this. The real betrayal begins the moment you stop fighting for each other. It starts long before you ever touch someone else. It starts with 1,000 tiny moments of neglect, when you stop looking at the person next to you and start looking right through them, looking